So I'm going to go a little bit onto a different topic to what I usually do today. I'm going to talk about the country that I live in, South Africa. So there have been a lot of changes recently. There's a new president, the annual budget for the government's being set at the moment. And this is kind of a place where there's always a lot of changes, a lot of turmoil, a lot of conflict going on, especially on a political level. So there's a saying that goes, if you live in Africa, you deal with Africa. This is a very different place to the typical first world country. I can't speak from experience in what ways it differs, but the people who've come here from other countries who I've met experience a type of like a culture shock, because there is blatant corruption that goes on. There is blatant disregard for common decency when you're dealing with public service departments. There is very obvious incompetence and misappropriation of funds and things like that. And anyway, so at the moment what is going on is that I think it's the finance minister or someone like that is proposing to increase VAT by 1%, 1 percentage point. So VAT is value added tax, which is something that if a business earns over a certain amount in a year, they are required by law to register for VAT. So a lot of goods and services have a VAT levy on them, which at the moment it's 14%, but it's being proposed to increase it to 15%, which is the first time that this is happening since the apartheid era. So basically what this means for the average person is that the cost of living will be increasing. There are certain things that are VAT-free, like maize meal, bread, milk, I think maybe a handful of other things, with the goal of having as small an impact on the very, very poor people as possible. And as well as the VAT increase, he's proposed another increase on the fuel levy and a increase to personal income tax. So basically what's happening is that at a time where it is already very difficult to make ends meet for the average South African citizen in the middle income bracket or below to middle income bracket, it is now going to become even more difficult. And, I'm not so much against the concept of taxing. However, when the government misdirects those tax funds and makes such a huge mess out of everything relating to public services, I get a little bit peeved when now there's an announcement that the tax rates are being increased. Because we're already dealing with members of the government using public funds for personal reasons, such as having parties, buying personal vehicles, first-class travel, very, very lavish houses. We have government tenders for jobs going out to family members of individuals in powerful positions. Those family members then either don't do the job at all, which is things like, fixing roads, building roads, water, pipes, stuff that you need, and you need it to be maintained well. So yeah, they then end up, either not doing the job at all or doing a really awful job. There, for example, is a road close to where I live. It's I think a 5.5 or 6 kilometer stretch, which is, I don't know, maybe about 4 miles, which took them 2 years to tar, because I actually have no idea why, but they just completely messed the job up. And within weeks of tarring it, there were already potholes developing and parts of the road caving in. So things like that are commonplace. Let's see. I had to renew my passport, and I still haven't been able to do it because I cannot get into the door of a Home Affairs office. I have gone on 3 separate occasions, and every single time I need to go, I have to borrow a car because I don't have a car. I have to arrange for someone to go with me because it's in a very dodgy part of town. I have tried going to different offices, but it's the same story. In any case, I cannot get in the door because there is a huge queue. The successful people arrive there at between 4 and 5 o'clock in the morning and still expect to be there at least half the day. So there are some serious issues when it comes to things like service delivery from our government. And now they're going to be increasing tax again. And where is this money going to go? Because up to now, what happens to it is it disappears. It ends up in someone's hands, an individual's hands, and they spend it on themselves and their personal life. So what does one do about a situation like that? Because every single person in South Africa is now facing this point of, we know that government corruption is a very serious issue. We know that these increases that we're going to be paying are going to go nowhere. The reasoning for this increase in taxes and levies is because there's a shortfall in the budget of something like 70 or 80 billion rand, which is not small pocket change. That's a hell of a lot of money. So these tax increases will cover a part of that shortfall, not even all of it. And from what I recall, the other part of the shortfall is going to be covered by cutting services, especially to municipalities. So things like road maintenance and garbage disposal, water sanitation, all that's the kind of stuff that's going to suffer. Which, that makes life kind of unpleasant for the people who have to live with that. So we're in an unpleasant situation, and the people who are in positions of power are in those positions, generally speaking, because it benefits them personally, and they are able to have good lives because of their position, and they use some questionable strategies to gain and stay in those positions, which is a topic for another time. Now, as frustrated as I am and as pissed off as I am, what I have to remember is that I can't blame the government for what's happening. I can't blame those people who are working within the government. I can't blame those politicians. Because this is not a problem that's isolated to the South African government. This is not a problem that's even just isolated within South Africa. This is a global issue, or rather, let me say, it's a human issue, an issue of humanity, where we as a species have evolved in a very particular way, and we live in a very particular way, and we think in a very particular way, and the way that the world functions reflects who we are, meaning that the corruption that we see in our governments happens only because the people who are in those positions in those government and political positions have that capacity to be corrupt. But it's not only them. We can't just say that, no, it's only people who work in government who are corrupt. In all of us, there is this truth, this reality, this honesty that we are all of those things that we blame other people for being, that we judge other people for being, to some degree or another. The corruption that we see in the government or in the corporate world, it exists because each one of us is also corrupt. And an example of that is, what am I willing to do, and who am I willing to trample or push aside in order to get what I want, in order to make sure that my family is safe and secure, in order to make sure that my family has what it needs, in order to make sure that my family has a good life. Now, in that context, it may not seem like corruption, but if you look at the individuals who are doing things for their personal gain, that's the nature of what they're doing and who they are within what they're doing, is they don't mind pushing other people aside and taking rights away from other people in order to create the life they want for themselves. And we each, on some level or another, do exactly the same. Our governments are not going to change until there is a shift in the majority of humanity, until there is a shift in how all of us are living, or maybe not all of us, but most of us, until there is a change in mentality where it's not us versus them, and it's not them who are to blame, and it's not I will do what it takes to have a good life for me and my family, where we start, all of us, living in a way where, what can I do to make this world a better place? What can I do to give to my fellow humanity, to my fellow beings here on earth, to ensure that we all have a good life? Those are the kinds of shifts that need to take place. It doesn't matter if you agree with me or not in terms of the point of, for example, that all of us are corrupt to some degree or another. What does matter is that we change our focus to, how can we be better? How can we live better? How can we be the examples that creating a life that's best for everyone is also best for me, that it's also best for you, it's best for our families, that equality does not come from taking away from some people and giving to other people. It comes from a creation of standing together, of sharing with each other. And that's a concept that, yes, is a little bit foreign to a lot of people, and a lot of people say that is not ever going to happen. Well, you know what? So long as we keep thinking that way, then obviously it's not going to happen. It's only going to happen if we make it happen. So, there's my little rant for the day. And yes, we shall see what happens in the South African political climate. We shall see what happens with all of these proposed tax changes. And there's another topic that I'm going to be doing a video on regarding land expropriation, which is a super fun topic. Yay! So, thank you for watching. If you'd like to support me, you can do so on Patreon or on Steemit. Both of the links are below. Thank you to my current patrons. Thanks for standing with me. And if you have any particular requests or questions, or would like me to expand on any points or share more experiences, then let me know. See you next time.